It's funny, you know? You think when a marriage ends, especially one that ended as disastrously as mine, that's it. You sign the papers, you divide the assets, you go your separate ways, and you start the long, arduous process of rebuilding. You don't expect the shrapnel from that explosion to keep flying years later. My first marriage to Sarah ended because, to put it bluntly, she couldn't keep her legs closed. It was a classic, sordid tale of infidelity, the kind you hear about but never think will land on your own doorstep. After the dust settled, I met Emily. She was and is everything Sarah wasn't: kind, loyal, and honest to a fault. We built a life together, a quiet, happy life in the Sarah and I had once shared. But Sarah's mother, my ex-mother-in-law, Dorothy, well, she never quite got over it. To her, I wasn't just the man her daughter had wronged. I was the one who had humiliated her family by moving on, by finding happiness after the wreckage her daughter had caused. In her deeply religious black and white world, I had committed a sin by not simply fading into obscurity, broken and alone. And she, in her divine wisdom, decided it was her God-given duty to make my new life a living hell. Dorothy was a pillar of her community, or so she presented herself. The kind of woman who was at every church bake sale, who spoke in soft, honeyed tones, and whose Bible was worn at the edges from performative piety. She saw my divorce from Sarah not as the consequence of her daughter's actions, but as a personal affront to her family's good name. When I married Emily, it was like I had poured gasoline on a fire she'd been nursing for years. The harassment started small. Passive-aggressive comments on the few social media posts we shared. Cars driving slowly past our house at odd hours, the silhouettes inside unmistakably familiar from old family gatherings. Then came the concerned messages from her friends, members of her congregation, reaching out to counsel me on the sanctity of my first marriage and the error of my current one. It was unnerving, a slow boiling pot of righteous indignation, and I could feel the heat being turned up, notch by notch. Emily, bless her heart, tried to be strong, but I could see the toll it was. The constant feeling of being watched, of being judged by this unseen jury of holy rollers, was starting to wear her down. It felt like we were living under a microscope, with Dorothy as the malevolent scientist, eager to see us squirm. The situation escalated dramatically on a bright Saturday afternoon. I was in the garage, working on my old project car, a '69 Mustang I'd been restoring. Emily was inside, probably curled up with a book. The sudden synchronized arrival of 3 minivans at the curb was the first sign that this wasn't a casual visit. Out poured a delegation of about a dozen women, all dressed in their sunbest, led by a stern-faced woman I vaguely recognized as one of Dorothy's closest church confidants. They moved with a chilling sense of purpose, like a flock of well-dressed vultures descending. I put down my wrench, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. They bypassed me completely, marching straight to my front door. I hurried after them just as the leader began to bang on the door, not with a polite knock, but with a series of forceful, demanding thuds. "Emily," she called out, her voice ringing with a bizarre authority. "We are here in the name of the Lord to deliver a message. You are living in sin in a house of godly union. We are here to pray for your soul and cast out the spirit of adultery that you have brought into this home." My blood ran cold, then hot. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was a home invasion cloaked in prayer shawls. I pushed through the gaggle of women just as a terrified Emily opened the door a crack. "Get off my property," I said, my voice dangerously low. The leader, a woman whose name I later learned was Carol, just smiled beatifically. "We are not on your property, son," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "We are on God's property, doing his work." One of the other women started humming a hymn and a few others joined in, creating a surreal, off-key chorus of intimidation. They were trying to perform some sort of makeshift exorcism on my wife, on my doorstep. The sheer audacity, the unmitigated gall of it, was breathtaking. Emily was pale, her hand trembling on the doorknob. I saw in her eyes, but also a flicker of defiance. "You are trespassing," I said, stepping in front of Emily. "I am calling the police right now if you do not leave." Carol just chuckled. "Go ahead. The police will see a group of God-fearing women praying for a lost soul." What will they see in you? A man shacked up with a harlot. The venom in that last word was palpable. That was Dorothy's venom, channeled through her disciples. That was the moment something inside me snapped. The years of quiet frustration, of absorbing Dorothy's toxic fallout, crystallized into pure, cold rage. While they continued their bizarre ritual, I pulled out my phone. But I didn't call the police. Not yet. I started recording. I filmed their faces, their cars, their license plates. I recorded Carol's sanctimonious pronouncements and the trembling voices of her choir. I got it all. Then, I retreated inside with Emily, locked the door, and made a different kind of call. I called a guy I knew, a tech-savvy friend who still had some connections within that church's younger, more reasonable crowd. I got it all. Then, I retreated inside with Emily, locked the door, and made a different kind of call. I called a guy I knew, a tech-savvy friend who still had some connections within that church's younger, more reasonable crowd. I sent him the video and explained the situation. While he got to work, I did some digging of my own. I went into the attic and pulled out a box I had hoped never to open again. It was a Pandora's box of my old life. Printed emails, screenshots of text messages, even a few saved voicemails. Concrete, undeniable proof of Sarah's multiple affairs and, more importantly, messages from Dorothy herself, not condemning her daughter's behavior, but coaching her on how to hide it better from me. The hypocrisy was staggering. She wasn't a grieving mother whose daughter had lost her way. She was an accomplice. The next 24 hours were a whirlwind. My friend, true to his word, had discreetly shared the video of the exorcism with a few key people in the church's social media groups. It spread like wildfire. But that was just the appetizer. The main course was served on Sunday morning. I spent all of Saturday night compiling everything into a single, cohesive narrative, complete with timestamps and photographic evidence. I created a private blog post, a digital testament to the truth. It laid out everything: Sarah's cheating, Dorothy's complicity, and the coordinated harassment against me and Emily, culminating in the video from my front porch. Early Sunday morning, just as the church service was about to begin, my friend sent the link to that blog post to the entire church email list. I can only imagine the scene. Pious faces, bowed in prayer, suddenly illuminated by the glow of their phones. The whispers starting, the shocked glances, the dawning realization that the woman they saw as a pillar of virtue was, in fact, a master manipulator and a liar. The fallout was immediate and glorious. Dorothy's phone apparently started blowing up mid-sermon. People were walking out. The pastor, a man I knew to be weak-willed and easily influenced by his biggest donors, like Dorothy, was forced to address the digital disturbance. By the end of the day, Dorothy was a pariah. The same friends she had sent to my house were now shunning her. They had been made to look like fools, tools in her petty personal vendetta, and they were furious. She was asked to step down from all her church committees. Her reign of self-righteous terror was over, imploded by the very tools she had tried to use against me. Public shaming. We never heard from her, or any of them, ever again. The quiet, peaceful Leah and I had fought for was finally ours. Sometimes I think about that box of evidence still sitting in my attic. It's a reminder that sometimes the only way to fight fire is with a cleansing, undeniable, and well-documented inferno of truth. And let me tell you, the silence that followed was the sweetest hell I've ever